The WNBA just got exposed, and it took exactly 19 games to prove what everybody already knew. Without Caitlin Clark on the court, this league's so-called historic growth looks more like a house of cards in a windstorm. And before you hit that dislike button, stick around because what Sophie Cunningham just did might be the only thing keeping the Fever's season alive right now. Trust me, you'll want to hear this. Here's the reality check nobody at WNBA headquarters wants to admit. When your entire business model depends on one 23-year-old's groin staying healthy, you've got a problem bigger than any TV deal can fix. The numbers just came out and they're absolutely brutal. We're talking about a 55% ratings nosedive the moment Clark stepped off the court. That's not a dip, that's a cliff. Let me paint you a picture of just how bad this has gotten. Remember that Sky versus Fever matchup everyone was calling the rivalry of the century? Back in May, 2.7 million people tuned in on ABC. Fast forward to last Saturday, same teams, same primetime slot on CBS, but without Clark or Angel Reese playing. They barely scraped together 1.3 million viewers. That's 1.4 million people who literally said, nah, I'll watch paint dry instead. And get this, the league tried to pull a fast one on everybody. They started floating these game time decision updates about Clark's return, trying to string fans along like we're idiots. Coach Stephanie White comes out yesterday saying Clark hasn't even been practicing, but somehow she was listed as a game time decision? Come on now, that's like saying I might run a marathon tomorrow when I haven't left my couch in 3 weeks. But here's where it gets interesting, and why you need to subscribe right now if you haven't already, because what I'm about to tell you changes everything. While Clark's been out nursing that groin injury since July 15th, Sophie Cunningham has been absolutely cooking. We're talking about a player who went from averaging 7 points when Clark was playing to dropping 16, 17, even 22 points in recent games. The woman literally took over point guard duties against Chicago and ran the offense like she'd been doing it her whole life. Think about this for a second. The Fever are 10-9 without their superstar. That's actually winning basketball. How? Because Sophie Cunningham turned into a different animal. She's shooting 45% from three-point range since mid-July, putting up a 76% true shooting percentage. Those aren't role player numbers. Those are all-star numbers. And she did it while the team lost Sydney Colson to a torn ACL and Ari McDonald to a broken foot. The Fever were down to 9 players, and Cunningham basically said, put me in coach, I'll play all 5 positions if I have to. You know what's crazy? Cunningham gained almost 1 million social media followers after that incident where she defended Clark against Connecticut. Remember when JC Sheldon poked Clark in the eye? Cunningham went full enforcer mode, got herself a $400 fine, and became a folk hero overnight. Marketing experts say that kind of follower growth would cost over $1 million to buy. She got it for $400 and some attitude. That's what we call return on investment, baby. Now let's talk about what really matters here, the money. The WNBA just signed a $200 million per year media deal that kicks in next season. But here's the thing, networks don't pay for potential, they pay for eyeballs. And when your all-star game drops 36% in viewership because one player can't play, that's a red flag bigger than the one at a NASCAR race. Look at these numbers and tell me this league isn't in trouble. When Clark played against New York on June 14th, she dropped 32 points with 7 threes and 2.2 million people watched on CBS. The very next Fever game on CBS without her, 1.3 million. We're not talking about different time slots or different days of the week. Same network, same primetime, just missing one player. That's almost 1 million viewers who piece it out faster than you can say triple-double. And it's not just the Fever games tanking. Sun vs. Somebody drew 180,000 viewers. Dream vs. Mercury pulled 160,000. Those aren't professional sports numbers. Those are numbers you'd see for a random college game on a Tuesday afternoon. The league keeps screaming about growth, but growth compared to what? Compared to when nobody was watching at all? Here's what kills me about this whole situation. The WNBA had the golden goose, and what did they do? They let every team take cheap shots at her for half a season. No landing space on threes, constant arm grabs, hits that would get you ejected in the NBA. And now she's missed 19 games with 3 different muscle injuries. You don't get 3 muscle injuries in half a season by accident. You get them when your body's been beaten up so bad it starts breaking down. The timing couldn't be worse either. Clark was supposed to be team captain at the All-Star game in Indianapolis, her home arena. She was supposed to be in the three-point contest going up against Sabrina Ionescu. Instead, she watched from the sidelines in street clothes while the ratings dropped faster than a lead balloon. 2.19 million viewers compared to 3.44 million last year. Even the Friday night skills competition, which actually went up 90% in viewership, would have been through the roof if Clark had competed. But wait, it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. The Fever's average opponent when Clark plays has a better net rating than when she's out. You know what that means? They've been beating up on weak teams without her. The moment they face real competition, this magical 10-9 record without Clark is going to look real different. And speaking of real competition, let's talk about what happens when football season starts. Right now, the WNBA is competing against basically nothing for sports viewership in the summer. Come September, when the NFL and college football kick off, these already dismal numbers without Clark are going to look like a ghost town. You think people are choosing between watching the Mercury play the Dream or Sunday Night Football? Please. The craziest part about all this is that the league acts surprised, like they didn't see this coming when they let their biggest star get mugged every game with no protection. Aaliyah Boston said it best when she basically admitted they weren't ready for the Clark effect. Well, no kidding. You had lightning in a bottle, and you let every team in the league try to break the bottle. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Clark hasn't missed a game between high school 4 years at Iowa and her rookie WNBA season until this year. Over 200 consecutive games, and then boom, 3 injuries in her second season. That's not bad luck. That's bad management by a league that doesn't know how to protect its assets. And let me tell you about the desperation moves they're pulling now. After losing Colson and McDonald to season-ending injuries, they had to sign Odyssey Sims to a hardship contract. No disrespect to Sims, she's had a solid career, but when you're signing players who haven't been in the league since June just to field a team, that's panic mode. You want to know the real joke here? The players are in the middle of CBA negotiations asking for massive salary increases. They're using this new viewership to justify bigger paychecks. But what happens when the networks realize that viewership is basically just the Caitlin Clark show? You think ESPN's going to pay top dollar for games that can't crack 200,000 viewers without her? Look at what happened with the Commissioner's Cup final. The Fever won it while Clark was injured, which sounds great until you realize nobody watched it. It doesn't even count toward their regular season record because even the league knows nobody cares about games without their marquee players. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham is out here trying to save the franchise single-handedly. She went from being a role player to basically becoming the team's emotional leader, on-court general, and scoring threat all at once. Against Chicago, she ran point guard for long stretches and helped blow them out 92-70. That's not normal. That's superhero stuff. But even Cunningham can't replace what Clark brings. Clark was averaging 16.5 points, 8.8 assists, and 5 rebounds before this latest injury. More importantly, she was averaging over 30% of the team's possessions. You can't just redistribute that workload and expect the same results. It's like trying to replace a Ferrari engine with a bunch of bicycle parts. Sure, you might still move forward, but it ain't gonna be pretty. The real tragedy here is that this could have all been avoided if the WNBA had protected Clark from day one, established that cheap shots wouldn't be tolerated, and actually called fouls when she got hammered. We'd probably be talking about the Fever's championship chances right now instead of whether Clark should just shut it down for the season. And that's a real conversation happening right now. Should Clark even come back this season? The Fever are 18-14, sitting in 5th place. They're not real contenders, especially with all these injuries. Why risk another injury that could affect next season or beyond? Why give the league more chances to let teams beat her up with no consequences? Think about it from Clark's perspective. She's making most of her money from endorsements anyway. She doesn't need to risk her long-term health for a league that won't protect her. And if she decides to play overseas or take extended breaks, what happens to these TV ratings then? We're looking at a potential death spiral for the league's growth narrative. The numbers don't lie, people. Pre-Clark injury, Fever games averaged 1.8 million viewers. Post-injury, 847,000. That's not a statistical anomaly, that's a pattern. And every week she stays out, more casual fans find something else to watch. Once you lose that viewing habit, good luck getting it back. You know what's really embarrassing? The league had to announce that there's no timetable for Clark's return, with the priority on her long-term health and well-being. Translation: we finally realized we can't afford to rush back our only marketable star and risk losing her forever. Too bad that revelation came about 19 games too late. Here's the bottom timeline, and this is why you need to like this video and share it with every basketball fan you know. The WNBA just proved it's not ready for primetime. When your entire league's relevance depends on one player's health, you don't have a sustainable product. You have a marketing gimmick that's one injury away from irrelevance. The Sophie Cunningham story is amazing, don't get me wrong. She's proven she belongs, she's tough as nails, and she's got the fever fighting despite everything. But even she knows this team and this league needs Caitlin Clark healthy and on the court. Without her, we're watching a league revert back to what it was before she arrived, ignored by mainstream sports fans and struggling to fill arenas. So what happens next? The Fever have to decide whether to bring Clark back for a meaningless playoff run or shut her down and protect their investment. The league has to figure out how to market games that don't include their biggest star, and the networks have to decide if they want to keep paying premium prices for a product that loses over half its audience when one player sits out. My prediction, Clark comes back for maybe 5 or 6 games max, just enough to keep the ratings from completely flatlining. The Fever make the playoffs, lose in the first round, and everybody pretends like this season was a success. Meanwhile, the real conversation happens behind closed doors about how to prevent this disaster from happening again. But here's the thing they still don't get. You can't manufacture another Caitlin Clark. You can't just decide someone else is going to be the face of the league and expect fans to care. Sophie Cunningham is incredible, but she's not moving the needle nationally. Aaliyah Boston is an amazing player, but she's not selling out arenas on the road. This league hitched its wagon to one star, and now they're learning what happens when that star can't play. The saddest part? This was supposed to be the WNBA's breakout year, the year they finally got the respect, the viewers, and the money they've been fighting for. Instead, it's become the year that exposed just how fragile their growth really is. One groin injury shouldn't be able to tank an entire professional sports league's momentum. But here we are. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button because I'll be tracking every game, every rating, and every desperate move the WNBA makes to try to salvage this season. Will Clark come back and save the day? Will Cunningham continue her unlikely hero arc? Or will the league's ratings continue to crater faster than you can say growth narrative? The WNBA wanted to be taken seriously as a major professional sports league. Well, congratulations. You're getting the scrutiny that comes with it, and right now the verdict isn't looking good. Without Caitlin Clark, you're not must-see TV. You're barely see TV at all. And until that changes, all the marketing slogans and CBA negotiations in the world won't matter. Because at the end of the day, sports is entertainment, and without your main attraction, the show just isn't worth watching. Comment below if you think Clark should come back this season or protect herself for next year. And remember, the WNBA did this to themselves. They had the golden goose, and they let everyone take shots at it until it couldn't fly anymore. That's not just bad business, that's basketball malpractice.